Hello and welcome to the Reversing Climate Change podcast. I'm Ross Kenyon. I am the creative editor at Nori's Carbon Removal Marketplace. Today I have with me Markus Torgeby, author of Under the Open Skies, Finding Peace and Health in Nature, which you produced with your wife, who took some beautiful pictures for it. Thanks for being here, Markus.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am happy to have you here. How do you describe this book?
It's just my ambition to help people to build a relationship with nature. That's just was the ambition when I wrote this book. So, yeah.
And it seems that your ambition is rather ambitious, given that you you didn't do it in an easy way in connecting with nature, did you?
No, I did it the hardcore way. Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Yeah, let's fill our listeners in a little bit about how you came to appreciate this lifestyle and live it so hardcore, as you say.
Well, when I was around 20 years old, it was just too much thoughts in my head. I had no direction in life. So I thought that I must put myself in a situation where everything is black and white. So that's the reason why I took the train up north in Sweden and just walk 3-4 hours out in the forest and build me a camp out there and stay there for 4 years.
Yeah. Just to let that sink in.
I can understand that this sounds crazy, but for me right then, it was just the right decision. I had so many thoughts in my head, and I think this was the best option for me to find a way forward. So, yeah. And I thought that maybe nature can help me with that. And I thought if I live close to my basic needs, maybe I find something. So that was the reason. So close to the Arctic Circle, so it far up north, and of course in the wintertime it's quite cold, minus 40 degrees. So you must stay focused if you will make it. But it's also that was it's a big satisfaction when you feel that, okay, maybe I can fix this.
And when you started, you were alone, and it strikes me as ascetic, monastic. Instead of being a desert father, you're maybe an Arctic father or some sort of Buddhist ascetic. Do you see yourself as part of an ascetic tradition somehow, or is that the wrong way to understand it?
No. I see, the guys that live in the desert. I was, I read about them when I was young. So maybe they lived in a warmer area, but the mindset was the same. So yeah, I had that thought in my head.
What's it like when you strip out so much of what we view as necessary? What's left behind when it's just sort of you and your very basic elemental needs?
Life become rich, and that was very strange for me to feel that, because now if I see a guy or a girl live simple as that, maybe I can think that, it seems a little bit harsh and hardcore and empty and poor. But when you live in that environment, also everything, also you feel a big richness, because okay, today it's really, really cold, and then you start a fire, and when you feel the heat from a fire over the chest, it's a great feeling inside. So it was a very rich life, and that has helped me a lot to realize that I don't need so much things, rather the opposite. Also to focus, to be happy with less things. So it was a good start for me to move out, to feel that.
I can see that there is a lot of learning that took place around materialism and how much you need, but it seems like a lot of your desire to be in nature, well, the way that you're putting it on this show is you had a lot of thoughts. And in the book, it sounds like there's various elements of trauma in your life or things that you were trying to deal with. I think a lot of people would say that it's better probably to run closer to people in cases like that rather than to seek solace being alone. What might you say about something like that?
Yeah, but I think that sometimes I think it's important that you put yourself in a situation where it's up to you to survive, because if you survive, you have find something. It's if you always have people around you, you always ask them for advice and things like that, and I think that can just make you more up in the head. Sometimes I think you must just find it, and it's not always easy. But for me, it was like that. I realized that it will not be any salvation if I talk to other people. I must find my own way, and the only way I can do that is by myself. So sometimes I think it's important to live a black and white life. Not always, but sometimes, especially when it's you have like anxiety or you don't feel happy. I think if you put yourself in a black and white situation, everything will become more clear, I think. So it's easier to feel and to see what's important for real. You understand what I try to say?
I think so. And pardon me if this is not how you see your cultural background, but it strikes me as extremely Nordic. It reminds me of Soren Kierkegaard or Ingmar Bergman, of these sort of like stark, melancholic, not a lot of words almost.
No. Yeah, it's like that. Now when I look out from the window, now it's like 7 in the evening in Sweden, and the place we live, it's just dark outside. I don't see any light, and I see the stars, and I think that do something with me. And I think many people today, they live in a urban environment, so they never see the stars, and I think that will shape them to something, and I don't believe in that. I believe in the stars, and to get, because stars give you perspective of things that are important. I think it's important to also see the horizon, to live in an environment like that. Also for me anyway, I something happens inside of me when I live close to that. So that's why I try to live close to that.
So you stripped out everything that you viewed as unnecessary, but as time goes on, you became married, started a family, and you've grown out from your little outpost of solitude into having a family in the wilderness.
Yeah.
How did this happen in your mind, or how did you know you were ready to start adding things back in?
But when I met Frida, it was like a punch in the stomach. So I just know that Frida, she's the one. So I just stayed with her. And of course, in the beginning, it was a big change for me, because I was used to just be by myself out in the forest, out in the darkness and in the cold. And it was also a big change for Frida to live with a guy like me. But so it took some years to find a balance between those two worlds. So in the beginning it was a little bit tough, of course, but now I think we have like a good mixture between the simple life and the more hectic life.
Are you close enough to others that you're able to sustain friendships and
Yes,
go to
yes.
school? Yeah.
Yeah. I have a black belt in that, because relations are really, really important. So I try to also put in a lot of energy in relations, because it's important. That's a good thing with me. I am very loyal. So when I like someone or something, I try to stay with that.
Do you maintain those relationships with social media, or do you stay far away?
I don't have any telephone. Now we do this over the internet, but it's my wife that fix things like that, because I don't have I suck into it, so it's easier for me to not have it. That's my way. Frida, she can have more thoughts in the head, and she have she's more balanced. Me, I'm more black and white, so it's easier for me to don't have any telephone, things like that, because otherwise it will become crazy in the head and everything will fall apart. So yeah, that's my way to fix it. And maybe this sounds a little bit odd, but yeah, I think you must find your own way. And Frida and me, we have like a good mix between this.
I think so. And I think it's a good question to know how much technology is appropriate for your own mental health. I always liken back to Wendell Berry when computers became possible for personal ownership, just said, I'm not going to do this, and never has. There are some serious downsides to it, right? You're much less connected. Things move a lot slower, but I think he prefers the pace that he set, and he has made a choice about, it's a little bit Amish, right? You just say, like, at this point, no further. And it sounds like maybe you've done something kind of similar.
Yeah, I think so. Because, I want my head to be healthy. And I think it's not easy if you have too much information around you. I think today that's a big problem. And I think it's important to put time in, so you just can be with your own thoughts. And so maybe that's why I try to stay away from too much telephone and too much internet and too much Netflix and too much television series and things like that, because it will not help me. It just, yeah.
Do you spend much time reading, or do you consider books in a similar category?
No, not now. So when I lived out in the forest for those 4 years, I read 2 books. So that was enough. But I read them very, very carefully. But now I read 1 or 2 books every month. But more as a feeling when I read. So it's a better feeling inside if I compare that to watch a series on Netflix. I feel more calm. I have like a big issue, and so I have so much energy in the head, so I must take care of myself, and I think I do that when I live a little bit off the grid and a little bit more back to nature and back to basic. Every morning before I woke up my kids, I must start a fire in the chimney, and maybe that sounds why do you do things like that? It's not easier to just have like a radiator, but I like the feeling when it's a little bit cold in the house, and then I start a fire, and then when the kids come down from the rooms, they sit close to the fire. I think that do something with them, and that do something with me when they so life is not just like a straight highway. That's not the way it should be. I think it's more up and down, and I think we should live our life more like that, more like a year in nature. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's warm, and that's the way it should be. Don't be afraid of freezing, or if you are a little bit hungry, that's okay, because when you eat you feel full, and then you're happy. Simple as that.
Yeah, there's some wisdom to that. I like that. I have a sort of banal suburban example, but I have one friend in particular, and oftentimes it comes up that we really miss, coming to consciousness in the 90s. And we were sort of the first generation that the internet, I remember like 56K modems booting up and making those horrible sounds. And it wasn't like everything is streaming and built for the internet. I remember going to Blockbuster. I remember having CDs and cassette tapes and video game cartridges and stuff like that. And I missed the sort of physicality and that everything wasn't seamlessly plugged into a digital environment, and it was sort of clunky. Even though it's objectively worse, I think, in some ways. I think trying to explain why this is good to someone who didn't experience it won't make sense. And it might just be nostalgia. But I sort of miss when things were a little bit less integrated in that way. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfectly. I think things that are hands-on, that's good. To feel something. Yeah, so those kind of things have shaped us humans for thousands of years. And I think it's important to have a connection with that, even if we don't need that for our survival today. Today you can work as a journalist, you can just write things and you can live in that. But I think still it's important to just use your hands, some things, to feel it with the body, to feel it in the skin.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think there's a tendency to make everything about software and digital, or you can imagine an app where it's like, you know how in the old days you used to have to get together with people and love them and all their difficulties? What if we could simulate a relationship with none of the bad parts? You'd be like, that's clearly not the point of it, right?
Oh.
But I feel like we do head that direction, and I think it misses something really core about life that is tragic.
Yeah.
Maybe you're immune from that. Maybe I'm just closer to Silicon Valley here, and so I see more of that app stuff that you don't even see. But some of it is like, why don't you just join the Elks Lodge in your neighborhood or join a bowling league? Why do you have to have some sort of like weird esoteric app for sorting in this kind of way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do you know your
No,
neighbors
I'm
and
not
their
immune.
names and their kids and stuff? Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I am not immune. But I try to. I was born and raised on the island outside the west coast of Sweden. My whole family were fishermen. So to live a life close to the environment, that has always, it has always been close, and I think that has shaped me, and I can see the positive things with it, and I can also see that sometimes it's really, really tough, but today when the kids grow up, also the things that are normal today for 50 years ago, it would be crazy, so and what will all this tech thing do with the kids? That's a interesting question. I try to teach my kids the things outside, because the internet things, they so much in the school and things like that are focusing on that. So the nature and thing, it become like not so common today. And
Yeah, I don't think it is. Well, have you thought about to what degree your children will use smartphones and how to manage access to things like that?
but I try to, me and my wife, we try to help our kids so they can ask themselves questions, So sometimes it's tough, but, me as a parents, when they are younger, I just decide. But when they grow older, they must also understand it's good for me. So I think it's important to teach them so they can ask themselves questions, is this good for me? If it's not, don't do it, and sometimes they will fail, but in the long term I think it's really, really important, because they must live their own life, and they must find their own way, and that is not always easy. And I think as a parents, it's so easy to just go and try to focus or teach them too hard. I think sometimes you must just take a step back to just have the, what you say, this language is so hard. I was living in the forest for many years, and I quit school quite young, so talk English is really, really tough. So I get frustrated because the words stuck like glue in the head.
So I agree. I think that's a great thing for parents to try to teach their kids. They clearly need to know, hey, this thing that I'm doing is not good for me. And this is not a new question. I think there's a Greek term called akrasia that's from the Platonic dialogues and probably earlier. But it's that if you know what the good is, why do you choose anything other than the good? And for instance, I find myself on Facebook quite often. People listening to the show, no, I do not think social media is in general so great for the way our minds work. And yet I click on it over and over again. I know that's designed to draw you in, but I know it's not good for me. I know it oftentimes makes me a little bit aggravated, and yet I keep going back to it. I don't even really know why. So maybe my parents didn't adequately instill in me what you are trying to instill into your children. Maybe that's what's happening.
But I think Facebook and things like that, also, it's smart people that develop things like that. Also, it's something in the head, and I think it's not easy. For me, I realized that I cannot handle it, so it's easier to just don't have Facebook. That's my solution. Maybe not the best solution, but for me, it's the best solution. My wife, for her, Facebook is no problem. Maybe she go in Facebook once a week, and that's okay with her, but not more. But if I have Facebook, it's become my, my God. It becomes too much. So I think that's just my head that works like that, and maybe you are similar. So yeah, sometimes I think, how does that feel in the body? If it's okay feeling, continue. If it's not okay, take it away, and then you just do it. Go out for a run instead. Then you come home and you are a little bit hungry, and then you eat some porridge, and then life is perfect. It's easy like that.
It's easy like that. Yeah.
Yes, it is
super easy.
Yes. But
maybe it is that easy.
But if you always have a candy in the pocket, you will eat it. So why do you buy candy? So don't buy it, or then you decide, okay, every Saturday I buy some candy, and then you eat candy for $2, and then it's okay. Or maybe you must have some rules for yourself. I don't know, but for me, it's easier to. I don't eat candy. I don't eat it because, if I start, I am like, I have this, you say, addicted. So I have that kind of personality. So it's easier to not have it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think a lot of people find it's easier to totally abstain from something rather than saying, oh, on this day I can do this, on this other day, oh, I can have one cigarette here, or eat one candy bar here. Before they know it, they're buying packs of cigarettes or eating whole bags of candy. So yeah, I think I
think also the thing with social media, Facebook and things like that, I think people have this feeling of fear of missing out. But I think sooner you realize that 99.9% of all the things in the world you will miss, and that's okay. So focus on your 1%, So I think it's important to find what is my percent, and when you find that, life become more easy, And I think under the 4 years I lived out in the forest, I find my 1%. So I try to stay with that, All the 99% will just distract me. So I just take that away and focus on my thing and my family's things and things like that.
Yeah, I imagine people listening might wonder, I'm sure they can make this link to climate change if they hadn't already, and maybe we can spell it out for you. But when I think about climate change, oftentimes it feels very zoomed out to me, where we're talking about markets or policy and things that are either at the national or international level, global level. And your world seems extremely small. I know that sounds bad, but actually,
no.
Oh,
it's fine.
You're like so zoomed in on your life and your family, and I'm wondering what wisdom we might be able to get for that in thinking about climate change broadly.
My wife's grandmother, Karin, 1 month ago, she celebrated her 100th birthday. Yes. And, many of those questions we talk about today with the climate and things like that and the environment, for Karin, so it's no big deal, because Karin, when she goes to the store to buy some food. She don't throw anything away. If she buy some clothes, she wear them to until they are worn out, and when they are worn out, she do something with the clothes, maybe she do some, I don't know, some pillow or something. And if she buy a car, she use the car until it's over, until the end. And I think to live a life like that, I think it will become more richer, because then you don't you don't focus so much on the neighbor and things like that.
Yeah, I think I used to view living that way as a sacrifice, and thus it seemed a little bit irrational to me. But I've also experienced more of that myself the last couple of years and read things like your book or Peter Kalmus's book. And it talks about what a joy it is to give up a lot of that stuff and to focus on reusing and being conservative in that way as being a source of great pleasure, and as opposed to just being like, oh, I can't buy this next thing. You're like, whatever, we'll make our own fun, we'll redesign something that we have and be creative, and that's even more pleasurable than just buying something on Amazon.
Yes, but what's your memory from last summer?
Oh God, what, just the pandemic and being inside and walking my dog?
Yeah, okay. But for me, my biggest memory were when me and my two older kids, we just took the trainers on and we ran over the hills, maybe 5 kilometers to like a small river, and it was maybe 16 degrees in the river, so not so warm but not so cold. And then we just float with the river for 3 kilometers, and then we just ran back home, a little bit frozen, a little bit hungry, and a big smile on the face. It cost nothing, just a little bit of heartbeats, and I think to remind yourself about those kind of things, it's important, because those kinds of memory, I think you will bring them for the rest of your life. So you don't remember that you buy a new bicycle or some kind of new training shoes last summer. As don't focus on that. Focus on nature, because those kind of memory, it will stuck in the head like a glow. And I think that is the best, to try to fill yourself with memory. It's a rich life, I think. So I try to focus on that.
To try to fill yourself with memory?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful sentence.
Yeah. I try to, and I try to teach my kids that also. So, and I think that's my, ambition with them, to just fill them up. And I think when I am gone, I think they will remember the summer when the father took them to the river, and when they swim under the water, or did a high jump from a high cliff, or do a long cross-country ski tour around the mountains. They will not remember that I buy a new bicycle and things like that. And I know every people know this, but still they focus on more and more things. And if you have more and more things, you must put more and more energy in that. And then you will, miss a lot of good memories out in nature.
That's certainly true. I find the amount of labor I spend processing cardboard boxes that we've received at the home in order to be recycled and unpacking things. And then once I have them, I'm like, oh, well, the vacuum needs a new filter. This needs that. Oh, I have to reseason our carbon steel pans. I have to do this. And it's just sort of an endless litany of chores that I have adopted because I chose to own all these things. And there's a simpler way, but dang it, I talk a good game about this, Marcus, but I don't really feel like I've been able to extricate myself from this pattern. If someone's listening and they feel inspired by this and they want to imitate you some, how can they start? Me too. How do I start? Because I like it, but I can't do it.
No, but start a little bit slow. Don't push it too hard. Just I think if you build a relation with nature, I think nature will teach you something. So I think that is important, and to if you're going to have a relationship, you must put some time into it. So just open up the door and go out, maybe for 2 hours every week, and you start with that, and then you go do it more and more and more. So one thing to do can be to just sleep outside one time every month. So then you will sleep outside 12 times for 1 year, and the second year maybe you take, and you just do it more and more. So don't push too much in the beginning, and then you just feel, is this something for me? And I think you will appreciate it, but you must put some time into it. Yeah.
What do you think someone would learn by sleeping outside once a month for a year?
Yes. Okay, if you live in a city, maybe you should, maybe you have a friend that live on the countryside. Visit that guy or that girl, and then you just lay on the outside the house, and maybe try to go to a place where you can see the stars, And I know that when you're looking up at the stars, that will do something with your head, I think you will think different thoughts. If you compare that room to just ordinary sleeping room, under the stars will do something with you. I like to swim, but if you compare swimming inside a pool or swimming in the ocean, I like to swim in the ocean much more, because sometimes I see fish and I see a fishing boat and I see the birds and things like that. It become a bigger experience when you swim outside in the ocean, and it's the same thing if you're going to sleep under open sky. So the sleep will become bigger. So, and you always sleep, you do that every day, so learn something.
Do you also like the related tradition? I don't even know if, maybe that's not the right way to say it. Do you also like this concept I've heard floating around recently called forced bathing? Do you see yourself as part of that?
No, but I have heard that word, but I think it's a good thing to hug a tree, absolutely. And maybe it's a similar thing that I do, but I know that if you are outside in the forest, it's a good feeling, something will happen. So just to be there, it is, yeah, I like it. So I try to do it every day, and I do it every day. When I am around Sweden and do some public speech, I always have my sleeping bag with me. And so after my job is done, I go to the closest village and just take one night there. And then in the morning, I take the train back home. So, yeah. And then maybe in the night, I hear some animals and things like that, and it's a big experience. If I compare that to a room in a hotel, the forest, it's become, that night become much bigger. I think I will learn something.
Yeah, I think so too. It's an interesting approach. I've gone to a lot of conferences. I've never gone camping while at a conference. maybe I should. Maybe I'm
Yes,
missing
of
out.
course. But in Sweden, I have never been in America, but in Sweden, so close to every city in Sweden, it's always as a big forest. So you don't need permission for the landlord to do it. You can just take your sleeping bag and go out in the forest, and nothing will ever happen to you. No dangerous animals. It's no snakes and things like that. And people, they don't walk in the forest in the night, so you can just be safe. And yeah, I like that. So I start a small fire and sit there and think a little bit, and then go to sleep and see the stars. And maybe it comes a little bit rain, a little bit, not so good feeling, but then I woke up in the morning and it's a good feeling again. And then back to the train and come back home to my family. I like that. So I try to do that every time I am away.
Yeah, it's fun to build a little discomfort in, given that we expect everything to be seamless, comfortable,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah,
Americans have a very strong back to the land tradition. We most commonly associate it with Henry David Thoreau and Walden, but
yeah.
you also have, everything that the hippies did in the 60s and 70s, and Christopher McCandless from Into the
Mm,
Wild. This is
mm,
It's sort of a part of our culture to, go
yeah,
west, young man, the
yeah.
frontier. But
Mm.
do your countrymen and women view you as a little bit of a nut, or do they appreciate what you're up to?
I think they appreciate, because maybe in the beginning some people didn't understand what I tried to do, but when they met me and we talked a little bit, so then they understand. So then they just left me alone. So and I think I am no I'm just a regular guy, and the thoughts and the problems I have, many they can relate to that. So and so we can talk about that, and then I try to talk about my way of finding my own way, and they can understand that. So yeah, I feel that people want to understand me, and I feel that people like me, and they don't think that I am a crazy guy, so.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear it. I
But of course, when you lived 4 years just by yourself, also 4.5 years in forest, of course, there will be some rumors, of course, but it's okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
I can only imagine.
yeah.
Well, actually, I have a thought about your book, and I'm wondering if you can confirm it or not. But it strikes me as incomplete, but in a good way. Whereas if there was an American version of this book, it would almost be a comprehensive how-to guide of how to
Mm,
do it. And while you do have some tutorials inside of the book, it's almost poetically truncated in the sense that there's pictures, there's stuff about how to start a fire, what kind of fabrics you like, what kind of food you like. It isn't all the information you seemingly need to, live outside for 4.5 years. There's a lot of knowledge that would presumably take, but it isn't the point to be comprehensive. And it being interjections of visual media and pictures, it's more artistic than it is a
yeah,
how-to
yeah,
guide.
yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
yes, yeah, so 100%. I just want to, open up. I will not be so much as a teacher. I just want to open up that door, that so people just go out and find by themselves, because it's so easy to tell people what they should do, and a lot of people do that. I don't like that. If you live outdoors for 4 years, so of course I can the craftsmanship, I can that. I don't want to write about it too much. So for me it's more interesting the things that are between the lines, also between the words. So I don't want to give away too much information. It's more a feeling I want to open up. So yeah. Mm.
Yeah, there's an American version of it that's just, here's all the gear that you have to buy, and it's
Yeah.
a couple $1,000, and you're just
Yeah,
like, yeah, just take a sleeping bag and you'll be
yeah.
fine.
Yeah. So but yeah, I hear what you say, and people sometimes they ask me just about that. Why, Marcus, why don't you write more with more information? But it's just that are the thing. I don't want to buy as a write with more information. I want to keep it a little bit hide in the dark. It is more about a feeling. I want to, you know like a sweet candy thing out in the forest. I want just people to get longing for it, and it's so easy to just say what people should do, and in social media it's always like that. Do like this or do like that, and no, that's not my way.
It seems like if the point is to go have firsthand experience, if you had a guide that told you literally everything you needed to know and would learn, it would somehow detract from your personal experience.
Yeah, I have also in Sweden. I have some kind of followers over the years. People that take contact with me, and they will try to live outside for a year or so, and they seek a lot of information. And I don't give them any information because I want them to feel it. From the beginning, from the start, I want them to learn the hard way, because if they learn the hard way, the knowledge will become much bigger in the heart. So and it's the easiest thing for me to just say to them, okay, do like this, then it will be okay. But I don't do it. Yeah, it's always like this. So that's my thing. I don't want to be too clear about things. I want to be a little bit more secret, because then they will ask themselves the right questions, and then they will become a bigger person. So in the long term, it's the best decision, for me and for them. But in the beginning, for them, they thought, okay, come on, Marcus, give me something. But I don't give it away. I just try to give them a good feeling, and then I know that good feeling will help them. So, yeah.
It sounds like your parenting philosophy too.
Yeah. I think so. I just try to, what you say, they have the possibility, just help them a little bit, but not too much. Then they find a way, and then they become really, really strong. Back in the days, I was quite a good runner in Sweden, and I trained some people, and as a trainer, it's really, really easy to just come to the training, and they just tell them, okay, today you're going to do this and that, and you're going to run in this speed, and things like that. But I think if you, the ambition, if you work as a coach, is to be unemployed. The ambition is to teach them, so the athletes can take the right decisions for themselves. Do you understand what I try to say here?
Yeah, I believe so. They're looking for someone to give them all the answers, and that's really not what it's about.
No, because they must just ask them the question by themselves, and then after, maybe sometimes they will find a way, and then they will become a much better athlete.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just to clarify too, so you spent 4.5 years out in the wilderness by yourself, but now it seems like you've split the difference where you're still living somewhat rurally with a family, but you're also not super far from others, right?
Yeah, we have like 2 Swedish kilometers to the closest neighbor. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Is
So
that
if something happens, I can run to them in 10 minutes. Yeah. I live close by the area where I live in the forest. So I lived in different, different spots on those 4 years. I had the TP in 4 different areas, but it were quite close to the area I live in now, maybe 2-3 kilometers. So it's in the same area I live in now. So the forest I run and lived in for 20 years, it's the same woods I live in now.
Do you think this rural living is maybe something that would be recommended to a listener rather than spending their own 4 years out in the forest by themselves? Do you think this is a good way to get a lot of the benefit of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But if you feel lost in the head, I think it can be a good way to put yourself in a really hardcore situation out in the nature. I think that can help you. If you also are in Sweden today, people get like burned out in the head. It's just too much, as they get really, really tired and cannot go to work for maybe 1 year. But if they are sick like that, I think they will come back to life faster if they just put themselves out in the forest. If it take 1 year, if you live a normal life, I think it will take maybe just 3 months if you are just by yourself in the forest. But those 3 months will be really, really tough, of course. But I think you will be back faster, I think, because, yeah, when everything is calm around you, after a couple of weeks, you will find your own thoughts, and then you will find a way, I think, anyway. And then if you are a little bit sad and then you are freezing like hell, then you don't focus on the sad feeling. You start to focus on getting warm, and then you start a fire, and then you just feel the heat over the face, and then you feel that, okay, life is not so hard. It's pretty okay. I sounds like a crazy guy. I hear it, but yeah.
Oh no,
I
mean,
believe in nature.
My laughs are not intended to be mockery. I'm tickled by your comments. I think they're interesting and worthy. Well, we should start wrapping it up, Markus. Obviously, if someone wants to support your work and the work of your wife, Frida, Under the Open Skies, Finding Peace and Health in Nature, they can buy this book.
Yeah. Yes. I'm really proud of that book. It's from my heart. So, yeah, it's a good book.
I like it too. I think it's well designed, and I like the experience of reading it. It's as I described it. It's more impressionistic and poetic than strictly straightforward. And I really like that about it. I think that makes it a really beautiful experience.
Yeah. Thank you. Makes me very happy to hear that.
Yeah. And links are in the show notes if you'd like to learn more or find a link where you could buy or investigate further if you'd like. And any final thoughts, Markus, or you feel like we covered it all? Yeah,
everything is just covered. So, but if you want to learn more, just buy the book, and then maybe that can help you to open the door out to nature. I think so, in a way. That was my ambition with the book, anyway.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you were successful at that. Yeah, go check out the book. And thanks for being on the show, Markus.
Thank you. Bye.